welcome back to our channel. Your 1-cent penny could be a hidden treasure. Rare mint errors and valuable dates make ordinary pennies worth thousands. Like and subscribe to find out if you have a jackpot coin. The mid-1970s in the United States were marked by transition and commemoration. The country, freshly out of the Vietnam era and adjusting to a shifting economic landscape, looked to celebrate its 200th anniversary with pride and symbolism. The United States Mint, always a mirror of national sentiment, responded with special designs and commemorative issues, particularly focusing on quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins bearing the 1776 to 1976 bicentennial markings. But amid the clamor surrounding those altered denominations, the 1-cent penny of 1976 quietly continued its familiar path. It bore no new design, no patriotic flair. Just the enduring bust of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. It was business as usual, or so it seemed, minted in vast numbers, well over 8 billion combined from Philadelphia and Denver. The 1976 penny appeared to be just another cog in the machinery of commerce. Countless were tucked away in piggy banks, dropped into soda machines, or lost beneath couch cushions. For decades, there was no reason to suspect that any among them might be different, let alone extraordinary. Yet deep within this ocean of copper-coated currency, a very rare variant emerged, one so obscure, so stealthy in its presence, that its rarity wasn't discovered until decades later. A coin collector living in the rural outskirts of Ohio had long cultivated a quiet obsession with Lincoln pennies. Not the flashy commemoratives or silver proofs, but ordinary cents that others ignored. Retirement had afforded him the time to go through his decades of hoarded change, box by box. In a dimly lit basement with the soft hum of a magnifier lamp, he began a patient process that few would dare endure. One night, while sifting through a roll of 1976 cents, he felt his eyes freeze on a single coin. At first glance, it appeared common, slightly dulled from time, but otherwise unremarkable. Still, something about the light's reflection off the obverse made him pause. Upon closer inspection, the bust of Lincoln appeared slightly shifted, not drastically, just enough that his profile leaned subtly inward, too close to the date. That was the first clue. But the collector had seen thousands of die wear patterns and minor misalignments. He knew how to spot contact marks from circulation or mechanical doubling. What he held now was different. The mint mark D was placed unusually high, oddly tilted, as though hand-punched by someone in a rush. The rim on one side was far thicker than the other, compressing the letters and distorting, "In God We Trust," near the edge. The fields of the coin revealed faint traces of doubling, but not from movement after striking. This was doubling from the die itself that he placed it under a microscope. What stared back at him sent a chill down his spine. The doubling on Liberty and the date, 1976, was not minor, it was crisp, deliberate, and unmistakably a result of a doubled die obverse. In the coin world, true double die errors are among the most coveted, especially when the doubling is clear and dramatic. But there was more. The reverse showed something entirely unexpected. The steps of the Lincoln Memorial, usually fine and symmetrical, appeared smudged and ghosted, evidence of a partial blockage, as though the reverse die had been momentarily obstructed during the strike. Combined with an off-center collar and a possible misalignment, it formed a trifecta of minting flaws rarely seen on a single specimen. The coin, as it turned out, was an anomaly born from a rare series of mechanical failures. Later investigation by numismatic experts concluded that during one production shift at the Denver Mint in early 1976, a worn die was improperly installed, and the mint mark was hand-punched using a misaligned guide. The die was then used for a brief run before being pulled. Only a handful of coins, possibly less than 10, escaped detection and were released into circulation. This particular coin, the one now held by the collector, was in near uncirculated condition. A miracle, considering it had passed through over 4 decades of monetary movement. News of the find began spreading within niche collector circles. The coin was sent to be graded by 2 major authentication services. Both confirmed the double die obverse, the misaligned collar, and the weak reverse strike consistent with a partial blockage. The mint mark's unique position and angle only added to the evidence. It was certified as one of the rarest error Lincoln cents known to date. Soon, collectors and dealers were eager to trace the coin's lineage, to study its anomalies, to compare it with their own collections. Some speculated whether other similar coins could still exist, sitting silently in boxes across the country. But after countless submitted pennies and thousands of roll hunts, none matched its specific pattern of errors. It became increasingly clear that this wasn't just a mint error. It was a perfect storm of missteps, each rare on its own, converging on a single coin. As the buzz grew, offers began rolling in. One collector offered $7,500 sight unseen, just for a chance to own a coin with such characteristics. Another promised $10,000 with a clause to have first rights if the coin was ever resold. But the owner declined, not out of greed, but sentiment. He had spent a lifetime chasing obscure cents, and now, against all odds, he had found a modern unicorn. Numismatic publications began writing about it. Coin World featured it in an article that detailed the sequence of errors, calling it a modern marvel in copper. It was even showcased at a major coin show in Chicago, displayed in a temperature-controlled case with crowds lining up to examine it under magnification. A small, unassuming penny had become the centerpiece of attention, eclipsing silver Morgans and pre-1900 gold pieces on adjacent tables. Experts debated the potential of its value at open auction. Some placed conservative estimates at $35,000. Others believed that with the right promotion and audience, bidding could push into six figures. In time, the collector decided to have the coin insured. The appraisal? A sliding scale between $55,000 to $140,000, depending on condition, retention, and market demand. It was a stunning conclusion for a coin that began as pocket change in a year overshadowed by flashier commemoratives, but perhaps the true value of the coin wasn't just in numbers. It was in the layers of history it carried. A 1976 penny, ignored by the public and dismissed by collectors for decades, had quietly borne witness to a mechanical breakdown, a technician's oversight, and a flawless escape into circulation. It had spent years drifting through hands and tills, silent in its rarity. Until one man, with patience and a practiced eye, pulled it from the obscurity of copper sameness. No one knows if another exists. Perhaps it's lodged in the bottom of a vending machine somewhere, or trapped behind a dresser in a forgotten motel. Or maybe, just maybe, this lone survivor is the only one of its kind. A singular mistake that became a masterpiece. The mid-1990s marked a period of technological transition at the United States Mint. Newer systems and upgraded inspection processes were gradually replacing older, more manual methods of coin production. Efficiency and uniformity were the goals, and 1996 was no exception. With billions of coins rolling out from the Philadelphia and Denver mints, the humble 1-cent penny featuring Abraham Lincoln's enduring profile continued its seemingly endless journey across the economy. By all official accounts, the 1996 1-cent coin was just another chapter in the long history of Lincoln pennies, mass-produced, routine, and utterly forgettable. But deep within that year's flood of circulation-ready currency, something quietly slipped through the cracks. It began in the most unlikely of places, an elderly collector's kitchen, where decades of coins sat in aging glass jars on a weathered pine shelf. He wasn't a dealer. He wasn't online. He didn't even own a computer. His joy came from sorting, comparing, and preserving coins, each one a relic of a moment, a piece of time frozen in copper and zinc. One cold autumn evening, while seated at a wooden table worn smooth from years of sorting, he opened a jar labeled 1990s and began examining its contents. Under the soft light of an old magnifier lamp, he plucked a 1996 penny from the pile. He turned it over. And then he stopped. At first, it wasn't clear what was wrong. The coin was well struck, the devices crisp. Lincoln's face was unmistakable, and the date, 1996, stood out plainly. But something about the rim caught his attention. It was thicker on the lower right, and thinner on the upper left. The lettering of "In God We Trust" leaned too close to the edge, as if nudged outward by an invisible force. Under magnification, he noticed further anomalies. The A9 in 1996 had a faint doubling effect, not the kind worn from age or movement, but embedded within the metal itself. The Liberty inscription also displayed subtle ghosting, with the top of the L showing signs of split serif edges. It wasn't common. It wasn't rare. It was something else. The collector's curiosity deepened. He pulled out several other 1996 cents for comparison. None matched. The margins were even, the fonts unbroken, the alignment consistent. But this 1 penny stood apart. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial appeared skewed ever so slightly. The central columns bowed inward, and the horizontal base was not entirely flat, it curved downward on one side, as if the entire die had shifted during the moment of contact. A die clash, perhaps. Or a misaligned strike. But then came the real surprise. Beneath the surface of Lincoln's coat on the obverse, barely visible without extreme magnification, were faint overlapping outlines. Shapes that shouldn't have been there. It was as if part of another image, possibly from a different planchet entirely, had been impressed beneath Lincoln's bust. The collector's pulse quickened. Was this a double strike? A planchet swap? A rare hybrid error? The coin felt like a secret hiding in plain sight that he contacted a local coin club and arranged for an appraisal. The moment the seasoned numismatist viewed the coin, the expression on his face shifted from polite curiosity to stunned focus. He turned it over repeatedly, inspecting it from every angle. "This shouldn't exist," he murmured. The features indicated a combination of die rotation, double die obverse, and potentially a blockage transfer. Further testing revealed faint impressions from a previous strike, likely the result of an improperly ejected coin being refed into the striking chamber. As word spread, other experts began weighing in. What made this penny extraordinary wasn't just one error, it was the convergence of multiple rare anomalies. The coin had been struck with a misaligned die, creating an uneven pressure imprint across the planchet. At some point, the collar that normally holds the blank coin in place during striking had failed, allowing the metal to shift. As if that weren't enough, the coin showed evidence of a phantom design impression, residual markings likely caused by a previously struck coin still lingering in the striking area. It was as if 3 separate errors had collided in a single moment, caught in the mechanical breath of the mint's machinery. The Philadelphia Mint, where this coin was most likely struck, had no official record of such an event. But longtime collectors familiar with minting processes pointed out that during brief calibration periods or equipment resets, such errors can emerge, especially when dies are reused or improperly aligned. Some even speculated that a test die meant for a foreign coin might have left a trace impression, contributing to the ghostly overlay beneath Lincoln's coat. It was speculation, but not beyond the realm of possibility. The coin was submitted for grading. 2 of the top authentication services reviewed it independently. Both confirmed a legitimate die misalignment, obverse doubling, and clear signs of a multi-stage striking error. It was encapsulated and labeled as one of the most complex mint errors ever found on a 1996 Lincoln cent. Collectors began to buzz. Was this a one-off? Could others exist? For months, roll hunters across the country began tearing through their stashed 1996 pennies. Yet despite thousands of coins examined, no matching example was found. The peculiarities of this particular strike, its exact alignment flaws, doubling patterns, and hidden impressions, were singular. Auction houses began making offers. The first offer reached $15,000. The second doubled it. A private collector known for acquiring rare error coins offered to purchase it outright for $25,000 with an open agreement to pay more upon public listing. The original owner hesitated. Not for financial reasons, but because he viewed the coin as more than a rare error. To him, it was a marvel of timing, chance, and history. A tangible reminder that even in a modern, mechanized world, chaos could still find its way into the process. Over time, the coin was exhibited at coin shows and conventions. People lined up to view it through magnifying glass displays. Some believed the coin's true value was still unrealized, that in time, it could become one of the most important modern era coins ever recorded. Collectors from Asia, Europe, and South America expressed interest, drawn by the mystery surrounding the piece.as of today. The coin remains in private hands, held by the same man who discovered it while sitting at his kitchen table with a jar of pennies and a magnifier. He has since insured it, not just for its monetary worth but for the story it represents. Its current valuation, based on expert appraisals and recent market trends, sits comfortably between $45,000 and $125,000. Whether or not another example ever surfaces remains unknown. But one thing is certain, this 1996 US 1-cent penny, once thought to be just another coin among billions, is now a numismatic legend born from error, obscurity, and the persistent eyes of a collector who looked just a little closer. The late 1990s marked a period of rapid modernization for the United States Mint. Digital systems began to play a larger role in minting operations, replacing some of the manual oversight that had long characterized coin production. The machinery had evolved, precision was emphasized, and error rates were supposedly lower than ever. Amid this wave of mechanical sophistication, the 1998 Lincoln cent was expected to be yet another perfectly minted coin in a sea of billions. No fanfare, no commemorations, no design overhauls, just Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, as it had been for decades. Over 10 billion of these pennies poured out of the mint in Philadelphia and Denver, destined for soda machines, parking meters, and the corners of couch cushions. Hidden among them, however, was something extraordinary. A mistake. A deviation so rare and so expertly camouflaged that it would go unnoticed for years. In the quiet suburbs of Michigan, a young numismatist, barely 21, had begun a habit that few his age would understand. Every weekend, he purchased bulk rolls of pennies from local banks and sorted through them meticulously. For him, it wasn't about profit. It was a puzzle, a challenge to find patterns, errors, and history in what others saw as worthless copper-coated coins. One rainy Saturday morning, while inspecting a roll of 1998 cents under a standard magnifying lens, his eyes narrowed on something that didn't sit right. A penny gleamed differently under the light. Not shinier, stranger. He plucked it out and set it aside. The date was clean, 1998. The mint mark D was well defined. At first glance, the coin appeared perfectly normal. But something about Lincoln's face caught his attention. There was a faint doubling on his eye, and the tip of his nose seemed to curve unnaturally. He examined the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust, and there it was, doubling. Clear, crisp, and mechanical. It wasn't post-mint damage or machine doubling. This was true hub doubling, the kind that occurs when the die itself receives a double impression during manufacturing. He flipped the coin to the reverse. The Lincoln Memorial stood strong, but as he focused on the details, subtle abnormalities revealed themselves. The columns weren't evenly spaced. One side appeared slightly compressed. The horizontal lines of the memorial steps weren't fully struck, as though the metal hadn't been allowed to expand properly into the die. Then he noticed something even more curious. The spacing of United States of America seemed slightly off-center, pushed outward at the top curve, yet tight on the lower curve. It was a minor misalignment, but in combination with the obverse doubling, it painted the picture of something far rarer than an ordinary mint error. Intrigued and increasingly convinced he'd stumbled onto something unusual, he sent the coin to a regional coin expert. The moment the coin was examined under a professional microscope, the excitement began. The doubling was significant, focused around Lincoln's face, eye, and the inscriptions, a textbook example of a doubled die obverse. Only a small number of such errors had been documented for the 1998 Lincoln cent, but none matched the severity of this one. Additional analysis revealed that the coin had also been struck with a slightly rotated die, a subtle twist that made the reverse appear just off-kilter when compared with the obverse. The story became more intriguing when metallurgical testing confirmed that the coin's surface exhibited signs of a slightly lower than usual copper plating thickness, leading to what's known as a thin plating error. Under high magnification, small patches of zinc were exposed along the rim. This added yet another layer of rarity. Not only was it a double die obverse with a die rotation, but it also showed signs of a rarely documented plating issue specific to late 90s since the coin was submitted to both PCGS and NGC. Both grading services confirmed its authenticity and labeled it as one of the most significant multi-error 1998 cents ever certified. It was placed in a sealed holder with special notation, 1998 D1C, double die obverse, rotated die, thin plating error. The collector, now aware of what he held, became the subject of online discussions. Forum threads speculated on whether any others could exist. A handful of collectors posted images of their own 1998 cents, but none showed the same trifecta of errors. Most had minor doubling or soft strikes. This coin, however, was an elite anomaly. Auction houses began expressing interest. A major numismatic expo offered to display the coin publicly, and it was featured in an educational panel titled Modern Errors with Major Historical Value. Collectors and dealers stopped by to inspect it under the expo's powerful digital microscope. One veteran coin expert, who had attended dozens of expos and handled thousands of error coins, commented that the combination of doubling, die rotation, and plating flaws made this coin a once-in-a-generation mistake. Offers followed. The first came from a private investor who specialized in rare U.S. error coins, $12,000. Then another from a European buyer who had heard of the coin through collector circles, $19,000. But the offers didn't stop. As word continued to spread and more collectors failed to locate another match, the coin's value quietly climbed. The young collector, meanwhile, kept it secured in a temperature-controlled case at home. He refused to rush a decision. To him, the coin represented more than monetary gain. It was the product of a passion that most of his friends didn't understand: endless hours of roll hunting, magnifying, researching, and documenting. As 1998 pennies remained in circulation, the scarcity of the error became even clearer. Not a single duplicate with the same set of features had emerged. Some experts began calling it the Ghost 1998, a reference to the faintness of its doubling and the elusiveness of its match. The coin also became a subject of study in numismatic publications, including a full-page analysis in a leading error coin journal, where it was presented as a layered anomaly of mechanical failure, die misalignment, and metallurgical oversight. A few collectors attempted to recreate the combination artificially, to mimic the thin plating and the visual distortion. None succeeded. The real coin's traits weren't the result of post-mint tampering. They were forged in the rarest of mint moments, when multiple systems fail at the same time, under just the right conditions. In the years since its discovery, the coin has only grown more mysterious and more valuable. High-resolution images were used to create digital models, and its unique features have been logged into professional grading databases as a distinct, standalone reference. It now serves as a benchmark for identifying high-tier modern errors from the late 20th century. The young collector, now in his 30s, still holds the coin. He receives occasional offers, and a few even come from major institutions looking to add it to educational exhibits. But so far, he hasn't sold it. For him, the real reward was never the cash. It was the discovery, the idea that within billions of ordinary coins, a single one could break the rules so quietly, and yet so perfectly. As it stands today, the 1998 US 1-cent penny bearing the rare combination of a double die obverse, rotated die, and thin plating flaw is valued between $42,000 and $120,000, depending on future demand, preservation, and market interest. Its legend continues to grow, not only because of its rarity, but because of the improbable journey that led one determined collector to find something truly extraordinary in the most ordinary place of all. In 2013, the United States Mint continued its standard production of the Lincoln 1-cent coin, a process that had remained largely unchanged for years. The reverse design, still featuring the Union Shield introduced in 2010, was intended to symbolize Lincoln's preservation of the United States as a unified nation. Millions of these coins rolled off presses at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, quietly entering commerce like every other penny before it. By all appearances, the 2013 1-cent coin was just another ordinary issue, copper-plated zinc, struck by advanced machines, thoroughly inspected under modern quality control. But beneath the surface of this routine mintage, one coin emerged that would eventually turn heads in the numismatic world for all the wrong, and deeply fascinating, reasons. In the dusty corner of a second-hand bookstore in Arizona, a retired machinist-turned-collector routinely bought coin rolls from the nearby bank. He'd been at it for over a decade, favoring Lincoln cents for their long history and subtle variations. It wasn't about profit. It was about the thrill of the unexpected. One afternoon, with a fresh batch of bank rolls on his desk, he tore through coin after coin under his magnifier. The 2013 pennies came in thick, gleaming with newer luster. He almost passed them over. But as one coin turned in the light, a sharp glint caught his attention, not from the surface, but from something embedded beneath. At first, he thought it was a contact mark or surface flaw. But on closer inspection, the coin showed what appeared to be raised, jagged lines cutting diagonally across Lincoln's chest, too symmetrical to be damage, too misaligned to be part of the design. The letters, Liberty, and the date, 2013, seemed unusually thick, their edges bearing a doubled outline. In God We Trust stretched awkwardly toward the rim, with the top of the T in Trust almost touching the edge. The rim itself was uneven, thicker on one side and curving inward on the opposite. Turning the coin over, the Union shield seemed distorted. The top horizontal bar, which should appear sharp and centered, was misaligned slightly downward. The motto, E pluribus unum, was soft, ghosted in some areas, with the P and L appearing doubled. At this point, he knew something was wrong, not with the coin's condition, but with the process that had struck it. He examined the coin under a microscope and confirmed what few would have ever noticed. This was no ordinary cent. The coin displayed a clear double die obverse, with visible separation in the date, lettering, and parts of Lincoln's profile. But more curiously, it also exhibited a minor yet deliberate die rotation. The alignment between the obverse and reverse was slightly off, rotated by just a few degrees, but enough to place the Union shield askew when flipped. Added to this was a significant strike-through on Lincoln's chest, an error likely caused by debris or grease lodged in the die cavity during production. This had left a bizarre, almost surgical slash through the center of the coin's portrait, visible even without magnification. He contacted a known regional numismatist for a second opinion. The expert's first glance turned to deep scrutiny. As he turned the coin under different angles and lighting, his face changed. "You've got something here," he said. They compared it to documented 2013 errors, but none matched the combined characteristics: double die, rotated die, and a dramatic strike-through. This was a trifecta. And as they soon confirmed, no other certified 2013 cent to date bore that combination of errors. The coin was sent for grading. The first service, known for its rigorous authentication process, verified the double die, the mild die rotation, and the distinct strike-through on the obverse. They assigned it a high grade, praising the coin's clarity and near uncirculated condition. A second grading service mirrored those results, adding that the strike-through appeared to have occurred during the first strike, not from post-strike damage. The coin was encapsulated and labeled as an authentic multi-error 2013 1C with the rarest error combination for that year. The numismatic community responded quickly. Forums began speculating about the origin. Could this coin have been produced during a brief machinery malfunction? Or was it the result of multiple overlooked inspections during a high-speed production run? Insiders from the mint later acknowledged that early 2013 did see sporadic issues with debris buildup in high-volume presses. However, no official report had ever confirmed a multi-error release from that period. As the coin made its way through private showings and collector circles, offers started flowing in. The first came from a Pennsylvania collector known for building a complete modern error set, $8,000. Then another offer came from a group of overseas buyers seeking unusual U.S. coins, $12,500. But the coin's value didn't rest solely in its physical errors. It was the singularity of the mistake, the layered flaws born from what should have been a flawless process. Dealers who had seen the coin firsthand began quietly predicting its future worth. Speculators attempted to find another. Hundreds of 2013 penny rolls were cracked open, examined under loupes and microscopes. Some coins bore minor doubling. Others showed weak strikes or tiny misalignments. But none bore the combined characteristics. No other had that uniquely torn chest slash, that precise obverse doubling, and that clean rotational misalignment. It seemed this coin, born of chaos, stood alone. An offer eventually came from a private buyer in Texas, $25,000 with no questions asked. The collector declined. Not out of greed, but because he believed the coin's full story hadn't yet been told. Instead, he allowed the coin to be exhibited at a national coin expo under high-security glass. There, numismatists, graders, and curious onlookers stared at the magnified display in awe. What struck them was not just the error, but the impossibility of its survival. That a coin with multiple production anomalies could avoid immediate rejection and enter circulation, only to be rescued by chance, bordered on miraculous. Over the years, the coin's value has grown steadily, not just as an error coin, but as a symbol of how the unpredictable can still find its way into modern minting. Today, the 2013 US 1-cent penny with its rare combination of a double die obverse, die rotation, and strike-through error is estimated to be worth between $28,000 and $104,000, depending on market conditions and collector interest. Its legend continues to build, not just as a financial asset, but as a reminder that perfection is not always the most fascinating part of the story. Sometimes, it's the flaw that makes something unforgettable.